A wealthy man opens his heart to help a struggling little girl, but what she reveals years later at her graduation changes his life forever. Stay tuned for a story of kindness, resilience, and a heartwarming twist you won't forget. In the heart of Chicago, amidst its towering skyscrapers and bustling streets, lived Jonathan Miller, a successful but lonely entrepreneur. At 52, his achievements in the tech industry had brought him wealth beyond imagination, a sprawling mansion, luxury cars, and countless accolades. His lavish lifestyle often masked a void he couldn't ignore, a lingering regret of choices made, paths not taken, and relationships left behind. In a modest corner of the city, the life of Emily Carter couldn't have been more different. At just 9 years old, Emily embodied resilience. Her world revolved around a small, weathered house she shared with her widowed mother, Rachel. Struggling to make ends meet, Rachel worked tirelessly as a seamstress, her hands worn from stitching hope into every garment. Emily, bright-eyed and full of dreams, clung to her mother's promise. "Education is the key, sweetheart. It will open doors I could never walk through." But the path wasn't easy. Emily's school, though filled with caring teachers, lacked resources. Textbooks were outdated. While other children carried brand new backpacks, Emily managed with a tattered hand-me-down. Yet her spirit remained unbroken. At night, under the glow of a flickering lamp, she'd lose herself in stories of inventors and dreamers, vowing to one day change her family's fate. The threads of their worlds crossed one rainy evening. Jonathan, returning from yet another monotonous charity gala, found himself stalled at a red light in a quieter part of the city. As the rain poured, his eyes caught a small figure on the sidewalk, a young girl clutching a soaked school bag, struggling to shield a stack of papers from the downpour. The sight stirred something in him. It wasn't pity. It was recognition, a reminder of his younger sister Sophie, who had passed away before realizing her dreams. Unable to ignore the ache in his chest, Jonathan rolled down the window. "Hey there, do you need some help?" he called out. Emily hesitated, her mother's warnings about strangers echoing in her mind. But something about the man's kind eyes disarmed her fear. "I am just trying to keep my homework dry," she replied, her voice trembling. Jonathan's heart ached at the simplicity of her struggling moment that would become the start of an unlikely bond. Jonathan couldn't drive away. His car, with its leather seats and quiet luxury, felt suffocating compared to the raw determination he saw in Emily. Stepping out into the rain, he offered her an umbrella. "Let me drive you home. This weather isn't safe," he said, his voice steady but gentle. Emily hesitated, then nodded, sensing no malice in his intentions. As they drove through the narrow streets leading to her neighborhood, Jonathan noticed the worn houses and dimly lit roads. When they arrived at Emily's home, Rachel, surprised but wary, met them at the door. "Thank you for bringing her back safely," she said, her voice polite but guarded. Emily, always earnest, interjected, "Mom, he helped me save my homework." Jonathan smiled and replied, "Your daughter's got a good head on her shoulders. She'll go far." Rachel managed a small smile, though the weight of their daily struggles never left her eyes. That night, as Jonathan sat in his study, Emily's determined face stayed with him. He found himself thinking of Sophie, how she'd once dreamed of becoming a teacher, and how the financial hardships of their youth had stolen that dream. Could helping Emily be a chance to right some of the wrongs of his past? Days turned into weeks, and Jonathan found himself visiting Emily's neighborhood more often. Under the pretense of donating to a local library, he learned more about Emily's brilliance and Rachel's quiet sacrifice. One day, at the community center, he overheard Emily telling her friends about a scholarship opportunity at a prestigious private. "But it's so expensive," Emily said, her tone filled with, "Mom says we can't afford even the application." That night, Jonathan made a decision. He arranged a meeting with Rachel, bringing an air of humility. "Your daughter has potential. I'd like to sponsor her education." Rachel's initial reaction was disbelief, followed by cautious gratitude. "Why would you do this for us?" Jonathan paused, then replied, "Let's just say someone once helped me when I needed it most. Consider this my way of paying it forward." Despite her initial hesitation, Rachel agreed, recognizing that this opportunity could change Emily's life. Emily, overjoyed, threw her arms around her. It was a moment of hope, a new chapter in their lives, written by an unlikely benefactor. Emily's first day at her new school, Crescent Academy, was a whirlwind of emotions. The sprawling campus, with its polished hallways and towering windows, was a stark contrast to the small, worn-down public school she had attended. As she clutched her new school bag, an unexpected gift from Jonathan, she felt both awe and anxiety. The other children, dressed in crisp uniforms, whispered as she passed, their curious eyes following her every move. "Don't let them intimidate you," Jonathan had told her that morning, his voice filled with encouragement. "You've earned your place here." Those words echoed in her mind as she entered her first class, her heart pounding. To her surprise, the teacher, Mrs. Carter, greeted her warmly. "Welcome, Emily. We're excited to have you join us," she said, her kind smile easing Emily's nerves. But the day wasn't without its challenges. At lunch, a group of students giggled as they whispered about her shoe is scuffed and a little too big. Emily gritted her teeth, determined not to let their words dampen her spirit. She had promised her mother and Jonathan that she would make the most of this opportunity, no matter how hard it got. Meanwhile, Jonathan kept a watchful eye from a distance, working closely with Rachel to ensure Emily had everything she needed. Their conversations grew deeper with time, revealing the extent of Rachel's sacrifices. "She's my everything," Rachel confided one evening, her voice breaking with emotion. "I've never been able to give her much, but I've always wanted her to have a chance to escape this life." As weeks turned into months, Emily began to find her footing at Crescent Academy. Her natural brilliance shone through, impressing her teachers and slowly earning the respect of her classmates. In science class, she built a solar-powered water purifier for a school competition, earning first place. The headmaster himself commended her during assembly, calling her an inspiration, yet not everyone was supportive. Victoria, the daughter of a wealthy board member, saw Emily as a threat. "She doesn't belong here," Victoria would mutter, rallying her clique to make life difficult for Emily. They'd knock over her books in the hallway, spread cruel rumors, and mock her humble beginnings. Despite their cruelty, Emily remained resilient. She channeled her frustration into her studies, knowing that her success was the best response she could give. One evening, as Jonathan sat in his study, an email from Emily's school caught his attention. It was a progress report detailing her achievements and challenges. Reading about her struggles with bullying stirred something deep within him. Memories of his own childhood flooded back, being teased for his shabby clothes and stammer, a sharp contrast to the confident man he had become. He knew the pain of being an outsider, and he vowed to do more to support Emily. The next day, Jonathan visited the school unannounced. Sitting down with the headmaster, he expressed concern about the environment Emily faced. "She's one of the brightest students you have," he said firmly, "and she deserves every opportunity to succeed." The headmaster assured Jonathan that they'd address the issue, but he knew that real change would come from empowering Emily, not just shielding her. Jonathan began mentoring Emily more directly, sharing stories of his struggles and how he overcame them. "People will always try to tear you down," he told her one evening. "The trick is to remember why you started in the first place. Use their doubt as fuel for your fire." Emily listened intently, her admiration for Jonathan growing with each word. For the first time, she saw him not just as a benefactor, but as someone who truly understood her journey. As Emily grew more confident, she began to stand up for herself. During a debate competition, where she was paired against Victoria, she delivered a speech so compelling that even the teachers applauded. "It's not where you start that defines you," she concluded, her voice steady and full of conviction. "It's the choices you make and the effort you put in that truly matter." The audience erupted in applause, and Victoria, for once, was left speechless. Despite her triumphs, Emily remained grounded. She often spent weekends helping her mother with sewing projects, insisting on contributing to their household. "I don't ever want to forget where I came from," she told Rachel one afternoon. Meanwhile, Jonathan's involvement in her life grew deeper. He started a scholarship program at Crescent Academy in Emily's name, ensuring other talented children from underprivileged backgrounds could access the same opportunities. One rainy afternoon, Emily and Jonathan visited the local community center, where she gave a talk to younger children. Sharing her journey, she said, "Dreams aren't meant to stay in your head, they're meant to be chased." As she looked at the hopeful faces in the crowd, she realized how far she'd come, how much further she wanted to go. As Emily's confidence grew, so did her aspirations. She began dreaming of attending one of the country's top universities, a goal that seemed almost impossible just a year ago. Late one evening, she sat with Jonathan in his library, flipping through a brochure for Princeton University.
Do you think I have a chance?
She asked. Jonathan smiled warmly. You have more than a chance, Emily. You have everything it takes to succeed. Encouraged by his words, Emily worked tirelessly to maintain her stellar grades and prepare for her applications. She spent hours perfecting her essays, writing about her journey and the lessons she had learned. Every challenge taught me resilience. Every kindness reminded me of hope, she wrote. Her teachers, recognizing her potential, rallied around her, offering guidance and recommendation. Even Rachel found herself dreaming of a brighter future for her daughter, one filled with opportunities she had never dared to imagine. Yet, life wasn't without its setbacks. One day, Rachel fell ill and medical bills began piling up. Emily was torn between her studies and caring for her mother. Seeing her struggle, Jonathan stepped in, ensuring Rachel received the best care. Let me take care of this. His unwavering support gave her the strength to keep going, even in the face of adversity. Months later, Emily's hard work bore fruit. She received acceptance letters from several prestigious universities, including her dream school. Overwhelmed with emotion, she ran to her mother, clutching the letter. Rachel embraced her tightly, pride and gratitude shining in her eyes. Jonathan, too, was moved by her achievement. This is just the beginning, he said. As graduation approached, Emily began preparing her valedictorian speech, determined to make it a moment to I want to thank everyone who believed in me, she told Jonathan during one of their talks. Especially you. None of this would have been possible without your kindness. Jonathan brushed off the praise with a modest smile, but deep down, he felt a sense of fulfillment he hadn't experienced in years. The day of the ceremony arrived, bringing together students, teachers, and proud family. As Emily donned her cap and gown, she couldn't help but reflect on how far she had come from the rain-soaked streets to the grand stage where she now stood. As she prepared to deliver her speech, she spotted Jonathan in the crowd, his expression one of quiet pride. She knew this moment wasn't just hers, it belonged to everyone who had helped her along. The auditorium buzzed with excitement as Emily stepped onto the stage. The graduating class, dressed in vibrant robes, sat in neat rows, their faces filled with anticipation. Parents and teachers watched from the packed audience, cameras poised to capture every moment. Standing at the podium, Emily took a deep breath, clutching the edges tightly to steady herself. She had rehearsed her speech countless times, but now, under the bright lights, the weight of the moment pressed heavily on her. Good evening, everyone, she began, her voice clear but slightly trembling. Today we celebrate not just our achievements but the journey that brought us here. As she spoke, her words carried the authenticity of someone who had fought for every step forward. She shared stories of resilience, moments of doubt, and the unwavering love of a mother who sacrificed everything for her. My mother, she said, her voice breaking slightly, taught me that no dream is too big if you have the courage to chase it. Jonathan watched from the audience, his heart swelling with pride. He had attended countless events in his life, from lavish galas to boardroom triumphs, but none had moved him like this. As Emily's words filled the room, he felt a deep connection to her story, a reminder of his own struggles and the people who had once lifted him when he was at his lowest. Then, Emily turned to Jonathan, her eyes locking with his. Here is someone else I need to thank, she said, her voice steady, but filled with emotion. The audience turned their heads, curious to see who she was addressing. A man who stepped into my life when I least expected it. A man who believed in me when I didn't even know how to dream. Mr. Jonathan Miller, you've been more than a mentor. You've been a father to me. Jonathan froze, unprepared for the surge of emotions that followed. A murmur spread through the crowd as Emily continued, recounting how Jonathan's kindness had changed her life. Because of you, she said, her voice cracking, I stand here today, ready to take on the world. She paused, her eyes glistening. And because of you, I've learned that success is not just about what you achieve, but about who you bring with you along the way. The room fell silent, the weight of her words sinking in. Tears welled in Jonathan's eyes, and he quickly wiped them away, his usually composed demeanor faltering. Rachel, sitting beside him, reached out and squeezed his hand. Thank you, she whispered, her gratitude echoing Emily's words. At that moment, Jonathan realized the profound impact one decision had made not just on Emily's life, but on his own. As Emily continued her speech, she invited the audience into the most vulnerable parts of her journey. She shared stories of self-doubt, the sting of being teased for her worn shoes, and the nights she stayed awake, wondering if her dreams were too big for someone like her. But then, she said, her voice growing stronger, I realized something important. Strength isn't about having everything. It's about using what you have to build something greater. The audience was captivated. Even the students who had once dismissed her listened intently, their expressions softening. Emily's courage in laying bare her struggles turned the auditorium into a shared space of reflection. Parents squeezed their children's hands, and teachers exchanged knowing glances. She ended with a challenge to her peers. Let's not just succeed for ourselves, she urged. Let's make a promise to give back, to lift others as we climb. Because at the end of the day, the most valuable legacy we leave behind is how we've impacted others. Thunderous applause erupted, and Emily stepped back from the podium, her chest heaving with the weight of emotion and relief. As the ceremony concluded, Emily joined her classmates in tossing their caps into the air, laughter and cheers echoing throughout the hall. Jonathan, watching from the sidelines, felt a mix of joy and bittersweet pride. He had seen Emily transform from a shy, rain-soaked girl clutching her homework to a confident young woman who had inspired an entire audience. After the ceremony, Emily found Jonathan in the crowd. "Mr. Miller," she called, her voice cutting through the chatter. He turned, his face lighting up as he saw her running toward him. Without hesitation, she threw her arms around him, the hug speaking volumes of her gratitude. "I couldn't have done this without you," she said, tears streaming down her cheeks. Jonathan held her for a moment, his voice steady, but filled with emotion. "Emily, you did this. All I did was open the door. You walked through it." Rachel joined them, her eyes glistening with tears. "We're so grateful, Jonathan," she said. "You gave her a chance when no one else did." Nearby, Emily's classmates and teachers watched the scene unfold, many wiping away tears. The story of Emily and Jonathan wasn't just a tale of kindness, it was a reminder of the extraordinary things that can happen when one person dares to believe in another. As the evening wore on, a small reception followed the ceremony. Emily stood by Jonathan and Rachel, surrounded by teachers, classmates, and even the headmaster, who all came to congratulate her. Victoria, the girl who had once tried to make her life difficult, approached nervously. "Emily," she began, her voice hesitant, "I just wanted to say, your speech was amazing. I misjudged you." Emily offered a kind smile, her humility shining through. "Thank you, Victoria," she replied. "It means a lot to hear that." For a moment, the animosity between them melted away, replaced by mutual respect. Jonathan, watching the exchange, felt a renewed sense of hope. Emily's kindness and resilience had transformed not just her life, but the perspectives of those around her. Later, the headmaster raised a toast. To Emily Carter, he declared, a shining example of what determination, grace, and the power of a helping hand can achieve. Her story reminds us all why we do what we do. The room erupted into cheers and applause, and Emily, though overwhelmed, felt a sense of fulfillment she had never known before. As the reception wound down, Jonathan found himself standing alone by the window, looking out at the city lights. Emily approached quietly, holding a small envelope. "I wanted to give you this," she said, handing it to him. Inside was a simple handwritten note. "Dear Mr. Miller, you didn't just change my life, you gave me the courage to believe in myself. Every step I take forward is because of you. Thank you for everything. Love, Emily." Jonathan's eyes filled with tears as he read the words. He looked at Emily, his voice barely above a whisper. "You've given me more than I ever gave you," he said. "You reminded me of what truly matters." As they stood together, the world seemed to pause. Jonathan realized that this wasn't just Emily's victory, it was theirs. In helping her, he had found a sense of purpose he never thought possible. And for Emily, the journey had only just begun. In the weeks following her graduation, Emily's life became a whirlwind of activity. She prepared for her move to Princeton, filling her days with packing, orientation meetings, and tearful goodbyes. Rachel, though brimming with pride, struggled to contain her emotions. "It feels like just yesterday you were holding my hand on your way to your first day of school," she said one evening, her voice thick with nostalgia. Jonathan, ever the steady presence, continued to support them. He gifted Emily a sleek laptop for her studies and even helped Rachel navigate the logistics of managing their home without Emily. "You are not losing her," Jonathan reassured Rachel during one of their conversations. "You've given her wings. Now it's time to watch her soar." Meanwhile, Emily's story began to ripple through the community. Her achievements became a beacon of hope for other students facing similar struggles. Crescent Academy honored her by creating the Emily Carter Scholarship Fund, ensuring that future students from underserved backgrounds could follow in her footsteps. Jonathan, moved by the initiative, matched their donation, doubling the funds. Emily also made it a point to give back. Before leaving for Princeton, she organized a small workshop at the community center, teaching children how to write compelling essays and apply for scholarships. "If I can do it, so can you," she told them, her voice filled with conviction. The children, many of whom came from difficult circumstances, looked at her with wide-eyed admiration. At home, Rachel prepared for her new chapter as well. Jonathan had quietly arranged for her to join a sewing cooperative, where her skills could be used to generate a steady income. "I don't know how to thank you," Rachel told him one evening. Jonathan simply smiled and said, "You've already done so much. This is just a small way to lighten your..." As Emily's departure date approached, the three of them, Emily, Rachel, and Jonathan, shared one last dinner. The mood was bittersweet, filled with laughter, memories, and promises to stay connected. "I'll make you both proud," Emily said, her voice trembling with emotion. Jonathan raised his glass. "You already have, Emily. You already have." The day Emily left for Princeton was a mix of excitement and tears. At the train station, Rachel held her daughter close, whispering words of encouragement. "Remember, no matter how far you go, home is always here," she said, her voice trembling. Jonathan, standing nearby, handed Emily a small leather-bound note. "For your thoughts, your dreams, or anything else you need to put into words," he explained. Emily flipped through the first few blank pages and noticed a handwritten note inside. "Keep believing in yourself. The world needs your light." She looked up at Jonathan, her eyes brimming with gratitude. "I'll make sure this notebook is full of good things," she promised. As the train began to pull away, Emily waved from the window, her face a mixture of determination and sadness. Rachel and Jonathan stood side by side, watching until the train disappeared from view. "She's going to do great things," Rachel said, more to herself than anyone else. Jonathan nodded. "She already has." In the months that followed, Emily's updates from Princeton became a source of joy for both Rachel and Jonathan. She thrived in her new environment, joining student organizations, excelling in her classes, and even securing an internship with a nonprofit. "It's everything I dreamed it would be," she wrote in one letter. "But no matter how far I go, I carry both of you with me." Back home, Rachel's life took a positive turn. The sewing cooperative became a source of stability and camaraderie, and she even started saving for her first vacation, a dream she'd long put aside. Jonathan, inspired by Emily's journey, expanded his scholarship program to include mentorship opportunities, ensuring students received not only financial support but also guidance. One evening, as Jonathan reviewed updates from the scholarship program, he received an email from Emily. Attached was a photo of her standing in front of a university banner, holding an award for academic excellence. Her message was simple but heartfelt. "This is because of you. Thank you for believing in me." Jonathan leaned back in his chair, a smile spreading across his face. For the first time in years, he felt not just successful, but truly fulfilled. Years later, Emily returned to Chicago as the shy, rain-soaked girl clutching her homework, but as a confident young woman with a degree in hand and a mission in her heart. She had spent her time at Princeton working tirelessly, and now she was back to fulfill a promise she had made to herself, to uplift the community that had shaped her. Her first stop was the community center, where she reunited with children she had once mentored. Now, she brought not just words of encouragement, but actionable plans. With Jonathan's continued support, Emily launched an initiative to provide tutoring, college prep resources, and even small scholarships for underprivileged youth. "This isn't just my dream," she said during the program's launch. Rachel, watching from the crowd, felt a deep sense of pride. Emily's success wasn't just hers, it was a shared victory for all who had believed in her. Later that evening, she told Jonathan, "You didn't just help her, you gave her the tools to help others. That's the kind of legacy most people can only dream of." Meanwhile, Jonathan found himself reflecting on how much his own life had changed since that rainy evening years ago. His once empty mansion was now filled with activity space regularly used for community events, mentorship gatherings, and even small family dinners with Emily and Rachel. It no longer felt like a symbol of isolation, but a hub of connection and purpose. One evening, during a quiet moment on the mansion's balcony, Jonathan spoke with Emily. "You've given me more than I ever gave you," he admitted, his voice tinged with emotion. "Watching you grow has been the greatest gift of my life." Emily smiled, placing a hand on his. "And you've shown me that kindness has no limits. I hope to carry that forward in everything I do." As the city lights twinkled in the distance, they both felt the enormity of what they had built together, not just a life-changing journey for Emily, but a legacy of hope and compassion that would ripple far beyond them. Months later, Emily organized a special event to honor the people who had made her journey possible. Held at the community center, the evening was a celebration of resilience, generosity, and the power of belief. Teachers, mentors, and friends gathered to hear Emily speak. "This isn't just my story," she said, her voice steady and full of warmth. "It's the story of what happens when people come together to make a difference. It's a reminder that no act of kindness is ever too small." Jonathan was invited to the stage, where Emily presented him with an award engraved with the words, "To the man who turned dreams into possibilities." Overwhelmed, Jonathan accepted it with a heartfelt speech of his own. "I started this journey thinking I was helping Emily," he said, his voice thick with emotion. "But the truth is, she helped me rediscover the meaning of life." As the audience applauded, Rachel, seated in the front row, wiped away tears. The moment felt like the culmination of every sacrifice, every sleepless night, and every ounce of love she had poured into raising Emily. In the years that followed, Emily's impact continued to grow. She became a sought-after speaker, inspiring audiences with her story of perseverance and hope. Her initiative at the community center blossomed into a citywide program, helping countless children pursue their dreams. Rachel, now retired, often volunteered at the center, sharing her wisdom with young parents. As for Jonathan, his life became a testament to the transformative power of connection. His mansion, once a symbol of solitude, became a beacon of generosity, hosting annual fundraisers and mentorship dinners. He often joked that he had gone from a solitary businessman to a proud member of an extended family he never knew he needed. One evening, as Emily prepared for a televised interview, she and Jonathan sat together, reminiscing about their journey. "Do you ever wonder what life would have been like if we hadn't met that night in the rain?" she asked, her tone contemplative. Jonathan smiled, shaking his head. "I don't dwell on what might have been," he replied. "I am just grateful for what is." As the camera crew arrived and the lights turned on, Emily took her place on stage, ready to share her story with the world. Watching from behind the scenes, Jonathan and Rachel exchanged a proud glance. Their journey had come full circle, proving that with love, perseverance, and a little help, even the smallest spark could light up the darkest night.